Greetings, Sentinels fans! It's time to finish up this series with the promo variants of the Freedom 5. The Freedom 5 have a similar deal to the Prime Warden's variants, where we have one promo unique to the hero, while the rest follow a theme. Of course, our first hero today breaks that mold almost immediately. Legacy has 4 versions, and each one of them is nuts in some way, to the point where some argue that I should have put them on my ban list. To which I respond with, maybe. The first and original one is the classic hero, whose power is to make every one of your other heroes hit harder, boosting each of their attacks by 1 point. If you want a quick idea as to how effective this is, imagine every instance of hero attack translates to a point of damage by this power. If you're only dealing 2 other attacks in the next round, then this is only 2 damage, and motivational charge might be better. But if you have heroes attack 3, 5, 8, 11 times, then the use of this one power goes up quite a bit. Having 11 attacks on one guy can translate to 11 damage for 1 power use. Might not be as direct as Superman, but just as overpowered. But let's move on to his daughter, the Young Legacy, America's newest legacy. This one is pretty simple. Use the power and she will use her laser eyes to blast a bad guy for 3 damage. And yeah, most powers like this deal 2 damage, but this is Legacy, so she gets 3. I will also note this is a bit of a testament to how balanced Legacy's deck is for support and offense, that this power feels particularly natural for how the deck is built. Compared to Extreme Arch and Adept, whose power feels weird if you use it exclusively for damage, since his deck isn't really built for that. But with Legacy, there is enough focus on personal offense that it doesn't feel weird to have a damage-dealing power. Anyway, let's move on from Paul's daughter to Paul's father. This one is America's greatest legacy, which isn't really an indication of quality, but rather a title given to the legacy of the greatest generation. Greatest Legacy has a power where he can give a single point of healing to a hero and give them a power use. Now of course, the healing is secondary to the power, but this does give you a little bit of healing on top of whatever power you want to use. Legacy can even use this power on themselves if they want, and apparently earlier in the game's life, this variant was sometimes called Jerk Legacy because of players who use the power selfishly so they can use motivational charge and heal themselves on top of that. Still, the ability to pass off power uses right from the start is a super useful thing. Legacy's final version has him wearing the special outfit given to him by his best frenemy, Baron Blade. This power can do one of 2 things. You can either have another hero play a card, or you can take an environment card in play and bury it under its deck. Both of those are really useful effects depending on the situation. Do you boost another hero's action economy, or do you remove a pesky threat from the environment? As near as I can tell, this is the only innate power that guarantees environment destruction. Now in terms of the most powerful legacy, it really is a rolling of the die here. With the possible exception of newest legacy, who even then is still pretty good, each of these are both powerful and diverse in their support capabilities. And Legacy isn't really a hero that needs setup, unlike Argent Adept or Captain Cosmic. He can hit the ground running, so any of these powers can be useful at any time, from turn 1 to the last turn of the game. For my own preferences, I like the original. There's something fun about how just being there makes everyone else more awesome, and that goes a long way towards expressing Legacy's whole deal. He brings out the best in others. And now we naturally move from Superman to Batman. The Wraith is the stealth expert of the Freedom 5, possessing enough intelligence, tactical know-how, and fighting ability to hold her own. Her original variant showcases her stealth, offering her a single use of damage reduction of 2. This isn't as effective as I think they were hoping it would be. I get the flavor she is hiding and therefore avoids a hit, but dodging a single attack does not feel like a good use of a power. It doesn't protect her from subsequent attacks, nor does it protect her all that much. Heavier attacks will still hurt. Now she can use this power more than once before the next attack to stack it, get a -4 and -6 and so on, but she's still only guarding against 1 attack. And now you've used up 2 or 3 power uses, and you know that as soon as you do that, Baron Blade will give you the finger by playing Haste and Doom to waste that shield before slamming you with Devious Disruption. Wraith's unique variant is her Rook City version. This one highlights her skills as an investigator, with an ability that I don't really think works very well. When she uses the power, Wraith peeks at the top card of the environment deck and then chooses whether to toss the card in the trash or put it directly into play. This seems to be a bit unhelpful, since most environments are slanted towards being harmful towards the heroes, rather than providing benefits. So you won't often put these in play, Though with foreknowledge, I would rather the environment spend its turn playing a beneficial card, instead of playing it immediately and letting the environment play another. Now you could use the discard function to mill the environment deck, potentially removing the more punishing cards. But at that point you are playing the probability game with the environment when you could be fighting the villain. Now we have the Freedom 6 version, one who fights against Iron Legacy by killing the chairman and stealing his organization. And look how happy she is about it. Interestingly, this version doesn't show off her new resources from the organization, but instead her hand-to-hand combat prowess, giving her a power where she deals up to 2 targets 1 point of melee damage. And those familiar with Wraith's deck might already see the issue with this one. Wraith's deck already has a power like that, her throwing knives, except her knives can target 3 dudes, while this power can only hit 2, and the knives deal projectile damage, which is boosted by her targeting computer, while the melee damage from her character card doesn't interact with anything in her deck. Now, unlike the other 2 powers I looked at here, I do use this one sometimes, as damage is always nice, and every now and then she might have a crappy time setting up. But unlike Ra or Haka, who both have character powers that are objectively less effective than powers in their own deck, Wraith is really good at setting up. Remember that time in the Expatriate Deep Dive where I showed a way Wraith can get fully set up in turn 1 if you are lucky enough? That's not even counting the crazy card draw she has, and other powers she can do instead. So we are batting 3 for 3 on Wraith powers being kind of meh. Okay, so let's see what this 4th one can show us. Well, Freedom 5- Whoa! Sorry, that thing looks so much like a spite mask to me. Yeah, sure, wear a deep red full face mask with eye decals. That doesn't remind me of anything. Well anyways, this version of Wraith gets a big step up in terms of powers. This version has a power that first allows her to draw a card, and then, until the end of her next turn, whenever she draws a card, she has the option to discard a card in order to allow another hero to draw a card. Nice of her to use her money on her friends. This is support that she doesn't usually provide, and is pretty useful besides. Sacrificing cards in her own hand to give others some cards is lovely, especially since Wraith can get set up rather easily and end up with some duplicate cards. Pair it up with Trust Fund and you can spread a lot of love around. And even if it's the start of the game or after a setup wipe, it is good for accelerated card draw too. Now with the power that is just as good at the end game as it is at the start of the game, pretty much makes this the best variant and my favorite. Totally not Spite Mask notwithstanding. Now let's look at Tachyon's versions. The fastest woman alive and a brilliant physicist. She is most certainly a force to be reckoned with. Also, and I might be remembering this wrong, but I think her metaverse appearance predates the discovery of tachyons in that universe, which just feels so appropriate. Her original variant allows her to peek at the top card of her deck, and then she can choose to discard it. And that's kind of a boring power. Now the power makes sense because Tachyon is one of those characters that likes to have cards in their discard pile, specifically cards with the burst keyword. But this power is just kinda lame, as it doesn't do anything substantive. You look at a card. If you don't want it, you can discard it. But if you do, you put it back, and you will end up drawing at the end of your turn anyways. So it's either one card in your trash, or no real effect. Moving on to her unique variant, we have a super scientific Tachyon. This is a fun one, where Tachyon selects a hero and looks at the bottom 2 cards of that hero's deck. If both cards have a keyword in common, then they are both put into play. Otherwise, they are sent to the trash. So if both cards are one-shots or both are ongoings, then they can enter play. Heck, if you reveal ongoing and equipment cards, but both of them have the limited keyword, play both. This is a support version that would be a lot of fun for the gamblers out there. Decks with high instances of one-shots versus other cards and vice versa, or decks with some extra keywords to work with, can take advantage of this power. Tachyon is even good at making use of this herself, as it can be a good way of shoving burst cards into her discard faster, at the possible risk of playing Lightspeed Barrage too early. But then again, it was at the bottom of your deck, so maybe not a huge loss. Third, we have Meredith's Freedom 6 version, often known as Team Leader Tachyon based on her power's name. This power is similar to her Fleet of Foot card, giving a card draw to every hero. I have gone at length before about this being powerful to the point of being game-breaking, so I will not go into that too hard here. It's crazy strong for a real low cost of 1 power use. Finally, we have Tachyon's Freedom 5 variant. This This one has Tachyon punch a bad guy for 1 damage, and then she has the option to bury a burst card from her trash under her deck in order to use that power again. In a way, it's a much more versatile Lightspeed Barrage, and can be a fair amount more powerful. You can focus down on one target or spread the love around. You can save all your punching for the big bad, or spend some of it to finish off a small guy in exchange for reducing the efficiency of the barrage. And most lovely of all, this power multiplies its usefulness for every consistent damage boost. Every galvanized, every by any means, every targeting arrow makes this so much more deadly. I tend to play this one sparingly, using her power to plink damage and nothing else until I have a sizable amount of bursts in my trash. And if I'm able to play all 3 Lightspeed Barrages followed by fully draining her trash with this power, preferably with a boost, and deal upwards of 60 damage in 1 turn, I'm a happy gamer. Now for best and favorite variants? Well, most powerful is the Freedom 6, though some might argue that for Freedom 5. Freedom 5 is my favorite, and the one that takes best advantage of her own deck, though there are many who cite the super scientific version as their favorite. And now we look at the coolest guy on the planet. Time for Absolute Zero. This chill everyman uses the cold he feels every day to help others, no matter how grouchy he may feel about it. His original power allows him to deal himself either a cold damage or a fire damage. Now to a new player this might sound ridiculous. Ridiculous enough to figure out that something is up. Well, Mr. Frost has 2 modules. One where he heals when he receives cold damage, and another where he deals cold damage whenever he receives fire damage. So we can use his base power to at least get things going when he has some machines to use it. His Freedom 6 version has him encasing himself in ice in order to patch up his failing suits. This one's power is to deal 2 damage to a bad guy. This is simpler and easier on the player, as you don't need the modules to function. It does suffer from a lack of ability to take advantage of those modules with your power, especially since Freedom 6 Absolute Zero cannot target himself with his base power. Next up is Termi-Nation Absolute Zero, who has decided to step out of his suit, and if you are using his base power, you can certainly tell. When you activate this power, until the end of his next turn, all damage that he deals and all damage that he receives is increased by 2. For someone who can rebound off damage done to him, this can be awesome, but risky. When he is slinging damage around, he can hit like a truck. However, with every hit on him, he gets slammed. His playstyle is high risk, high reward in that way. This does mean that he needs his setup a bit more than most, which can be annoying at the start of the fight. But when you get this going, he will freeze the world, and when he takes fire damage, it will hit him really hard, as when he targets himself, he will receive +4 damage from the fire, but if he's targeting himself with cold, he gets +4 healing. So if he targets himself with fire and then targets himself with cold right after, he'll receive 4 extra damage, but receive 8 additional healing, for a net gain of 4. So sometimes you'll just see his health bar going. And finally, we have the Freedom 5 variant. And no, because of the Termi-Nation variant, Absolute Zero does not have a unique variant. This last one puts some effort towards setup issues that Absolute Zero sometimes deals with. This power has him first deal himself 2 fire damage, rebound off that if you have the equipment for it, and then he may summon an ongoing card from his deck. Now it isn't his necessary equipment, but he can get ongoings that can work without assistance, as well as ongoings that give you card draw. This can speed things up significantly, so you are more or less certain to have your full loadout, which is not always a guarantee with the other versions. This certainly makes this one a fan favorite, because Frost is awesome when set up, but it's getting him there that's the issue. So for best variant, well, one can argue the Freedom 5 is the best as it addresses the shortcomings of the deck. But Termi-Nation is great for working with what is there and just dealing oodles of damage and teasing death. Termi-Nation is my favorite, and maybe the best, but Freedom 5 is a great contender for that one. Now you may ask, why am I finishing up with Bunker? Well, my friend, that is because Bunker holds the record for most amount of versions in the game, at 5. Base version, Unique, Freedom 6, Termi-Nation, and Freedom 5. Base Bunker's power is simple. Activate the power, he draws an extra card. I'm not going to call that useless, especially since he likes his setup, and more cards are more cards, especially for his Omnicannon, but it's not particularly interesting. His unique version is GI Bunker, a World War II era bunker piloted by Vernon Carter. The power on this one is that he selects a target and all damage dealt to that target is irreducible. This can be either really nice or just meh, depending on the situation. Irreducible damage is a weird thing in this game, being very situational. Usually, damage reduction is tied to ongoing cards, so ongoing destruction is preferable to finding irreducible damage. But when the reducer is a target, or in the case that a target provides its own shielding, then it becomes more useful. So the usefulness of this guy will depend on the bad guy. Next up, we have Freedom 6 Bunker, and wait, that ain't Tyler Vance. Nope, that is Stephen Graves, the Fright Train, occupying a hollowed-out bunker suit provided by Tachyon. Yeah, in the Iron Legacy timeline, Tyler Vance was one of the first heroes to get killed by Paul. Anyway, the power on this one has Bunker discarding one of his mode cards in order to destroy an ongoing card. Hey, at least we're doing something with those mode cards. Yeah, those cards are some of the more frustrating in the game, and I'm glad for a variant that has as much contempt for them as I do. Having ongoing destruction is always nice, but sometimes you prefer to have his usual setup anyways. But the next variant does get some more use out of the mode cards. The Termi-Nation bunker suit was made to combat choke point, so the armor is made out of ceramic and is much more modular than the others. This one's power has Bunker destroy one of his cards. If he does so, then he gets an extra card draw, an extra card play, and an extra power use in whatever order you want. It's almost a whole nother turn. And Bunker has plenty of stuff that is either redundant or sometimes you wouldn't miss. So you have plenty of fodder for this. Now there are a few that argue that since you use a play to put a card in play, and a power use to destroy that card with the power, so you just end up with an extra card draw. Therefore, this power is a sneaky version of the original base power. And respectfully, I call BS, and here's why. First, if you already have something from a previous turn in play, then the power doesn't have a play cost. Second, being able to choose the order of the effects can change things a lot. Third, this power has some fun interactions with the modes. Use the power and save the card play for last and put down recharge mode without suffering that turn from the power it takes away from you. You can play turret mode, use a first power, and then use the extra power from the turret to destroy the turret, and still get a draw, play, and another power use. So you get to have the benefits of these modes without the drawbacks. Upgrade mode is still pretty useless though. Now the final version of Bunker is Freedom 5 Bunker, and this one has a supportive power. Use this one and you will reveal the top card of each hero deck. Then choose a deck to play that card while returning the others. If a mode is revealed on Bunker's deck, then he plays that too. Bunker may not choose his own deck for this card play. This is a nice power for support, but otherwise doesn't really interact with his deck. So for best and most favorite of the Bunker versions, I will go with Termi-Nation Bunker. And that concludes my series on promo variants. For now. I hope to see you again soon. My channel is chock full of Sentinel stuff and a few other things too. Take care, friends. I hate it when I misspell things in my script. She was an average fighter, but she was a brilliant scientist. Sorry. Stupid DBZ joke.